have to transfer.
And go. Okay, ready to go? Welcome to OSCAL Central. This is a monthly program featuring matters of interest to OSCAL 2 Rail, which is Model Railroad's greatest scale. This is the December 15, 2024 program. I'm David Vaughn. Welcome to folks who are tuning in for the first time. Welcome back if you've been here before. OSCAL Central Online is presented by OSCAL Central as a service to the OSCAL community. OSCAL Central is a nonprofit 501c tax-exempt membership organization. We promote 2-rail OSCAL and support modelers in the scale. I invite the audience to check us out at oscalcentral.com. That's our website. We welcome your membership and think you'll enjoy it if you do join, but membership is not a requirement to tune in. We think it important to have the OSCAL community as informed and as mutually supportive as possible. I want to introduce Greg Vigiano, who handles a lot of programming issues in connection with the program, and thank him for his work. If you know people who would like to view this program but who are not able to do so, or if you would like to see it again at the end of the program, please note that we have these programs recorded, and the programs are placed, they are edited by Ryan Sawyer, whose work I thank him for, and they are posted both on YouTube and are available through the oscalcentral.com website. We have a program today which is an exciting aspect of doing these programs live. Our headliner today is Tom Farrell, and Tom is an extremely accomplished modeler who models in narrow gauge, and we are very well aware how important part of the scale narrow gauge is, and how many great modelers there are who model in narrow gauge. And we have not done the job that we need to do to reach out to those modelers. And Tom Farrell is not only agreed to be our narrow gauge coordinator, but has agreed to show one of his programs that introduces narrow gauge to the larger scale. As you know, narrow gauge has not only the same scale, but the same scenery, vehicle structures, and all of the support that the other parts of OSCAL have. The only thing that's different is the gauge, and there is some wonderful advantage to it. And Tom's original program was to make that introduction and make the connection that we plan on developing. We'll be participating in the Narrow Gauge National Convention and devoting considerably more attention to this important part of the hobby. All of that by way of introduction to say that Tom is on the road, as so many of us are, either in business or family. And the original video that he was prepared to present has magically disappeared from his computer. I know about stuff like that. Happens to me all the time, usually when you are far from civilization and outside of technical support. The good news is that Tom, who is, as I said, a very accomplished modeler in a segment of the hobby that is full of very accomplished modelers, has another really neat program that he is going to show us today, and that is the construction of an O-scale two-stall roundhouse modeled after the famous gory and defeated John Allen roundhouse.
Engine.
I'm sorry?
Engine house.
Engine house. What did I say? Anyway, so we're looking forward to that. I do have a couple of announcements to make in advance of that. First is a general invitation to people to check out our website, oscalecentral.com. It is chock full of information both to people who are O-scale curious, beginning with a 10-minute video that is an introduction to the scale, and a lot of information for people who are already O-scale modelers. The website includes a number of very special parts, one of which is a scale-wide product and service guide. Some of you may be old enough to remember the Walthers, large-scale catalog. When Walthers discontinued that, O-scale lost its central place to find products, and when the retail hobby shops went out of business, we lost another chunk of being able to find it. We have a product and service guide that has approximately 200 vendors in the scale. So if you want to find what's available in O-scale, both standard gauge and, as we fill it in, narrow gauge, go to the website and find the guide and go through it. It is searchable, it is indexed, and we are building it and keeping it up to date all the time. We also have a schedule of coming O-scale events because they don't generally get featured on network television, so we got to have a place that we can go and find them. We're doing a lot of work on the website. There's new features being added all the time. It's a really exciting time for that. But just like Tom Farrell has had some technical issues, I went there this morning to check out on the upcoming O-scale events, and that particular part of the website appears to be blank. That said, I got a couple of things that we need to highlight so people know where you're at and can keep oriented in O-scale. The first is coming up in March 20, 21, 22, 23. I guess actually the 20th is a preliminary setup day, but the March meet in Chicago, actually in Lombard, Illinois, is going to take place 21, 22, and 23 March. That is the mother church for O-scale, and everybody should try and get there. This is like a pilgrimage to Mecca. If you've never been, you should go at least once just to do it. If you've been before, you'll know that it is important to come back. Brad Kowal and his crew are doing a great job, and every year gets better attendance and more vendors and more features. O-Scale Central is always very active at the Chicago O-Scale show. We sponsor a social evening at which we can engage in adult beverages and swap modeling stories. We will be working to supply the judges for the model contest. We'll be putting on a clinic. We will be holding a business meeting and generally very active in that program. One of the other things I want to highlight, and this is only preliminary, and the details will be posted but are not yet up. And unless Rod Miller wants to add some specifics, I will simply at this point flag the fact that O-Scale West, under Rod's leadership, as it has been for so many years, is going to be back on May 23rd, 24th, and 25th. O-Scale West will be having its show in Santa Clara, California, at the motel that it has been using for a number of years. It has been a real tug of war with O-Scale West, and I am really pleased to report that they are alive and well, and have again come up with an arrangement that should be workable, both in terms of the accommodations for the people who will attend and the show sponsors and the vendors. So I want to thank Rod and congratulate him on the successful negotiation of a hotel contract in what for model railroad shows has been generally a hostile environment. Rod, do you want to say anything in addition to what I covered, other than to say we will be posting that in coming events on our website? Anything to add? Okay, I'm going to assume that's not. But O-Scale West, that's an exciting piece of news. All right, and I had sort of introduced Tom Farrell, and he is a spectacular modeler and a real friend and promoter of O-Scale generally and of O-Scale narrow gauge in particular. I will let Tom do anything beyond that in terms of introducing himself.
Thank you very much for the invitation this evening to participate in O-Scale Central's online monthly meeting. I am currently off the reservation and in my hometown of Pittsburgh, and when I fired up my notebook computer to do this evening's presentation, which I presented or I prepared, it just won't let me have access to it. But I have over 65 presentations with new tracks, modeling, and all O-Scale. So I took 4 of them 20 minutes before the show and combined it to this presentation. And this evening, I'm going to feature the John Allen engine house, perhaps the most iconic structure in model railroading, easily recognizable to us guys that are of a certain age. And I've scratch built one in HO and O-Scale. This one is in O-Scale, specifically sized for ON30. This is the finished engine house featuring on my layout and a narrow gauge locomotive there. So I'm going to show you how I built this, and I hope you find this entertaining and educational. If you're not a scratch builder, there, or even if you are, maybe there'll be a tip or two here. I always learn something from others myself. So onward. Oh, there we go here. Okay, perhaps the most, I'm going to give you a little background on John Allen himself for those who may not know him. He is perhaps the most famous model railroader that ever lived. He had the famous gory and defeated G&D HO railroad. A lot of people say that all our scale model railroading, to bring it up off of the toy level, is he was probably the greatest influencer in that regard. Certainly one of the pioneers. Tony Keister, relatively famous himself, quoted John Allen's talent was plain and simple model building. And countless people in the hobby say the biggest influence, I should say countless people of my age, the biggest influence for me in the hobby of model railroading was John Allen, said many model railroaders. He had a nickname called the Wizard of Monterey. He lived in Monterey, California. And even though he's a fantastic scratch builder and modeler, he didn't take himself too seriously. The very name, Gory and Defeated, is a play on words. And his little axiom, we ain't modern, but we're progressive. I mean, he didn't take himself too seriously, but his models were absolutely perfect. They were serious. There's the infamous engine house, and there's him sticking his head up in his railroad. His railroad burnt to the ground, so none of it, very little of it was saved after a fire. He did whimsical cars like the swayback car, for example, and he had this Stegosaurus that he whimsically said was his switching locomotive for his freight yard. Just a little humor there. He didn't take himself too serious, but his modeling, as you'll see, was just stunning. This is his John Allen original engine house. Now that is made totally scratch build. I call myself a scratch builder, but I use things like Grant Line or Tichy windows. I use milled material like clapboard siding. Everything you see there is either cardstock, the windows are everything there is truly scratch built. And this model would hold up today this model would hold up today in anybody's contest. That's HO, by the way, half O. One of the things he said in this 1948 article is, should you decide that your railroad needs a engine house of this type, change the dimensions and plans to fit your own locos and other requirements. He said that way back in 1948. And I say, well, who am I to argue with the greatest model railroader of all time? And so begins my O-scale version, specifically sized for ON30. So an ON30, as Mr. Vaughn pontificated, is O-scale. It's just a different gauge. We are 30 inches across the, we are 30 inches across the rails. This model, like all my scratch builds, begins on a piece of plywood. And the advantage of working with ON30 over full-size O scale is, in essence, you can model in O scale, which is the modeler scale, in my opinion, but it has the footprint, the track and the engines and things more or less of HO. So you can get a lot of O scale in a small space. And this engine house is no exception. If you were to model this in full scale O scale, it would be at least twice as large, probably be about 2 feet by 1 foot, approximately. Now, I don't normally draw things up in CAD before I model them. I just go for it. But in this particular model, I drew this front in CAD because this is very difficult to accomplish otherwise. This front, these curved openings. I did do it by hand in the HO version I did, and it was very difficult. And I said to myself, I wasn't going to repeat that problem in O scale, and I drew it up in CAD. So I got all the proportions right. And even though it took me actually a couple hours to get this right, it's not as simple as it might seem. So I printed it out, and glued it on a piece of cardstock. And that was the beginning of my model. Remember in the beginning, I said, I use a lot of pre-made materials, and one of my favorite materials are these Monster Works materials. They have shingles and wood siding and all different scales. They have HO, S scale, O scale. In this particular kit, I actually use some S scale and HO scale materials on my O scale model. The shingles, for example, I thought the O scale shingles were too large, so I selected HO scale. And I didn't want the same siding on the floor, the same pattern, same wood on the floor of the engine house as the sides. So I chose for the siding O scale, and for the decking of the engine house, I chose S scale. And then I used a combination of Tichy windows and Grant Line windows. Remember, John Allen did all this complete scratch build. I could technically do that. I have the skills to do that. The question is today, would John do it the way he did it in the 40s, or would he model like many of us do, simply purchase these windows and doors? I'd like to think he'd use modern materials. He did it out of necessity. First thing I did is I thought I'd put in the foundation. This is that Monster Works. This is what they call concrete block. I'm making this actually limestone block. I'm from the limestone industry, and my layout, the rustic buff and old Gothic railroad, features limestone quarries. So I thought it'd be prudent to include a limestone foundation. So you'll see at the finished product, I turn that concrete block into limestone. And then I drew out where the two tracks are, drew a center line. Then I super glued the track in place. That is code 100, technically HO track that I had. These are the colors, the paints that I use. And I'll tell you a little about this weathering wash in a moment, but these are just craft paints, an alcohol wash, a Tamiya acrylic paint. I have a large flocal collection that I don't normally like to use. Later in the model, I found an exact match with a Tamiya non-poisonous color. So those are basically all the colors that I needed. Then I began to detail the inside. I wanted like a wainscoting around the perimeter. So I thought I'd put in the perimeter first of the wainscoting, and then I thought I'd paint it, and then I'd drop in the floor. So I wouldn't have to be so careful to paint that wainscoting with the floor in place. Then I started with the sides. I took some of that siding that I showed you earlier. It does have an orientation, and I simply sketched it out with a ruler and a modeler's square that I got from Micromark. And I cut out the windows, and with a very sharp X-Acto blade and my square and ruler. Then I test fit the windows. And then I began the laborious process of detailing the inside of those walls. So I wanted them to have a certain look to them. I did go a little off what John Allen did. I saw a O scale. Somebody did one of these and had a basically what I'm going to call an old time inside. Basically was painted white and green. It looked really really neat. So I thought I'd reproduce that. So I put in these this interior detail. The trusses rest on these very heavy beams. This is all scale lumber. Then I did the opposite side. The only difference between side above and the other side is one side has a door and the other doesn't. So then I cut out the door and the other side, and test fit its windows and doors, make sure everything fit. And then I began painting the inside, this matte white acrylic paint. That took quite a bit of time. Not so much the painting, but the putting those pieces in place. And then I began with the Floquil initially, painting this Kelly green, if you will, on there. And then I super glued that to the what I'm calling the foundation or the perimeter. Later, I would go back and add additional green trim. I thought it was still a little, not the look that I was trying to achieve. You'll see how I developed this. I put my first base coat on that limestone wall. All of my modeling is a question of layers. So you put down base colors, and then you put on a series of washes, whether they be alcohol washes or acrylic washes, or rarely do I use oil paint washes, but the painting and weathering process for me is a series of layers. There's looking down at the engine house with that S-scale flooring in place. And there you can see I've added green to, remember I said it was too sparse. Now I've gotten more in the direction that I like. This will all get weathered in the end, but this is where we are so far. So that's that S-scale Monster Works wood siding. Makes an excellent floor. Now I've put in some more trim here. This is just 1x6s on the base here. This is the other side. It's finished. Now here's a something that John Allen would have used. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but if you take white vinegar and steel wool, and you put the steel wool in the container of white vinegar and let it in there for 2 or 3 weeks, the vinegar dissolves the steel wool, and that makes a great stain, a real aged look. And it costs virtually nothing, and it works beautifully. When it dries, it basically gives you an iron oxide. The outside of John Allen's engine house had these strips going down. So I just mimicked that with 1x6s, 1x4s, sorry. Everything I painted this Tamiya flat brown paint, everything you could see. Well, nearly everything. I didn't want to hand paint these windows, so I took a flat brown Rust-Oleum camouflage and I sprayed these windows with that. There's up close of the browns and the that steel wool wash. Look at the detail on this Monster Works board. They laser in the wood grain. There are no materials that are this detailed in the marketplace. So they actually laser etch all the fine wood grain on here. That's pretty amazing detail. You could argue that these boards should be parallel and perpendicular. I took an exception to that because I wanted to use this material. It's just stunning material. Here's my 2D CAD printout on cardstock that I'm going to use as a template. I rubber cemented it to the back side of that material. Then I cut out the perimeter. Then I cut a crude hole in there, and then with a rat tail file, I filed out that circular window. There's the finish, well, not finished, but I didn't cut the locomotive passageways through yet because I wanted this to be relatively strong while I was screwing around with the rat tail file. I didn't want to flex around. And I test fit that till it fit snugly. Then I cut out those circular openings. And then I glued it in place. So you can see the model starting to develop at this point. I started with some interior bracing. It's close up of the floor. I've put in this solid, what amounts to a 12 by 12. Everything I paint as I go along. That's that Tamiya flat brown. Now here's the trick. If you want to learn something in this, these are very difficult. The trim on this, unless you have a laser cutter, which I don't, cutting wood round like this is a very difficult proposition. I did it by hand on my HO version of this, and it was a very difficult process. I had the idea to do it in styrene, simulate wood this time around. So I taped I printed the template out again. That's a fresh printout. I taped it to the styrene, and I cut these trim pieces out with an X-Acto knife, and I cut these trim pieces out with an X-Acto knife. And there's the first one I put on there. That is a very tough job in wood. And when I'm done, you can't tell the difference between plastic and wood. You see a lot of these in HO and O scale on Google, and they have square door openings. They go off what John Allen actually did, because this is so difficult to do round. But it's not so difficult if you do it the way I just demonstrated. It's actually relatively painless. So there it is developing there. There's the trim is starting to come into place. This is straight. I think these were 1x6s. This is 6 inches wide. This is that styrene. These are styrene too. So now I've put in the windows. There's looking into the model. I mean, it's really starting to look like a engine house at this point. This is that old style look I was trying to achieve. It's not strictly what John Allen did, but I liked it and saw it on a model online and emulated it. I did the back wall exactly the same as I demonstrated in the front opening. Same technique. Then I began the trusses. These are quite large. They sit right on top of these heavy beams inside. So I put all those in place. The model has a removable roof. Now it's starting to look more and more impressive as a model. Just different views. When I paint this green and white, I do a process what I call a bounce, because you have to be meticulous about it. So if I see a little bit of green or a little bit of white on the green, I'll paint the white over the green, or I'll paint the green over the white. And I may have to do that about a half a dozen times till I think it's basically perfect. Then when it is perfect, I weather it. But it has to be perfect first before I weather it. I've put in a center beam here is what I'm illustrating. And this is a up close of some of the roof spans, roof beams. There you go. So all of these models are an exercise in patience. You're never going to do one overnight. This took approximately a month to do of evenings. It's starting to come alive. Now the roof itself. Again, this is Monster Works shingles. I chose HO shingles. They have an orientation, obviously. So I learned something here. When I glued, I couldn't just have the reverse of this Monster Works shingles here. I wanted to have some detail on the underside of the roof. So this is a scribe siding. But when I cut these openings out and glued this to this, I used yellow glue. That was a mistake because it warped like hell. So then I had to make it all over again, and I did it in super glue. So lesson to myself, if you're gluing, and yes, you could say you could put weights on it. I had weights on it. It warped anyway. It was just too much moisture, or maybe too much glue. Super glue, I had no issue. So there's the roof on and this cupola, however you say it. It's starting to look like an engine house now. There's some basic weathering going on. Weathering on my limestone. These are all pan pastels. I should say that before I do any weathering on any model, I spray the entire model with Tester's dull coat, seal everything up. Then I add my pan pastels, and then I hit it with dull coat as well. The difference between pan pastels and chalk is if you typically spray chalk with dull coat, the chalk seemingly disappears, where the pan pastels don't. So if you're going to use dull coat, seal your models up after weathering, I recommend pan pastels over straight up chalk. There's pretty much the finished model. There's some detail on the roof that I see that was the double-sided material that I used. So you have the shingles here, and if you look, you can see actual individual boards. This whole roof lifts off. The rails are rusted. It's pretty much as it is. And there it is, finished on the layout. And it's the first thing you see when you enter my railroad room, the rustic buff and old Gothic. And for many of us, it's an instantly recognizable model, the John Allen Engine House. And it's O scale, proportioned for ON 30. And right in front, by the way, is standard gauge O scale, that track. Just to give you an idea of the size. I have a interchange depot to the left of this model, to the left of that engine, where the layout switches from O scale to narrow gauge. So gives you an idea of the size, proportionate. All right, well, if there's any questions, I'll entertain them. Otherwise, I do thank you for having me as a guest, and maybe in the spring or whenever they have me on again, I'll do my narrow gauge presentation for you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Tom. And if you all have questions for Tom or comments, or just giving him a big attaboy, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions.
I'll start. I have a couple of questions, Tom.
Uh-huh.
One question is, what did you use for the window glazing material?
And you froze up. What did I use for the window glazing material?
Yeah.
Just acetate, and I use what's called canopy glue, which is borrowed from our military friends. Um, so I just cut it with an X-Acto knife, and each window requires two pieces because there's two different levels there. Um, but I just carefully applied, even though canopy glue is, quote, completely transparent, it isn't technically completely. So just use it sparingly and drop it in with a pair of tweezers.
And how much of the work do you think you could do with a 3D printer for the difficult part formations?
Uh, I I had a I have 124 slides on this presentation. I narrowed it down to about 80. I didn't show you the detail how I built up the roof. I don't know the correct pronunciation. Cupola,
Cupola.
the cupola. There we
Yeah.
go. That would be a great candidate for 3D printing because it was quite tedious to put in the 1x6s on the angle. If I quickly go to these would be a great candidate for 3D printing. These are approximately 8 feet long in scale, and they have their boards, they're like a lattice, they're on an angle here.
Yeah.
These would be good for 3D printing. You could make your own windows, I suppose. This is flat. I don't know I guess you could do that in 3D printing, but I would think these roof windows, I had to basically compromise. They weren't the look that I wanted. They were as close as I could get to the right look. So if I had to say, if I had a 3D printer, I would say this would be number one. This would be number two, these three windows in each side. And then if you were ambitious, you could make your own round window and these other windows. But principally, these things up here would be the
Okay.
candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I thought your process photography was exceptional. It really was so professionally done with showing your progress steps.
Well, thank you. I have 65 videos on YouTube. Just search for my name and New Tracks Modeling, and there they are. All scratch builds. Yep.
Thank you.
All low scale, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Any more questions for Tom before we move on? I told you that Tom is a spectacular modeler. Here is a little gem of an engine house to prove it.
Thank you for your kind words.
Thank you. All right. I want to move along. We've got a couple of things more that we want to do, and then we want to tee up next month. For those of you who joined the program a bit after we started, please check out oscalecentral.com. That's our website. Consider joining OScale Central. A reminder for present members that your one-year memberships will need to be renewed, and you can do that online. Simply go on oscalecentral.com and look for membership, and I'm sure that you'll be able to complete it. We are running some new programs. I mentioned a few of them before, including the scale-wide product and service guide, a wonderful section on the website that people can go to who are newbies, and you can refer people to that if you run into folks who are OScale Central, OScale who are seeking an introduction to OScale. We've got some great material to do that. And we have been running a quarterly journal. We are behind schedule right now on that. We're going to figure out what we need to do to get back on schedule, but that's been quite quite useful. And we have a significant presence at all scale shows to try and make O-scale reality to modelers in other scales who may not be familiar with the existence of O-scale. But one of the new programs that is under development right now is something that I want to flag for you and have Greg Vigiano talk a bit about. As we all know, 3D printing has been exploding, especially in O-scale. The factors limiting O-scale commercial modelers have generally been the expense of the tooling, the necessity for the run size, and the problem of needing to maintain inventory over extended periods of time. 3D printing basically, I won't say it eliminates, but it greatly reduces the impediments to O-scale models. The tooling is essentially CAD drawings. The inventory and run are essentially however many you want to produce, down to and including one. And that's making models that are significantly more detailed and more rewarding to build than in some of the smaller scales, and without the necessity of having a huge capital investment and a huge time investment. Basically, everybody is a manufacturer if you want to be, and everybody can have the advantage of the CAD tooling. You can think of it as being the modeling equivalent of going from film cameras to digital cameras. So every modeler is now on the cutting edge. But this is one of these, but wait, there's more. Just like the late night television ads, some of the people who have been doing these fantastic CAD drawings and developing models have decided to make their drawings available for use in the scale in a library so that everyone can have access to them. This is like freeware. And Greg Vigiano has been coordinating the development of an O-scale central library in this regard. He's got some things to put out there, and we are at this point trying to get more feedback as to how this might work. So I'd like Greg to tell us a bit about where we are now, give us some examples, and ask for your feedback as to how we might move forward on this.
Well, thank
Greg?
you, David. About 12 months ago, we started getting organized with an O-scale catalog for all different model categories: locomotives, steam and diesel, other types of motive power, and then a whole range of rolling stock, freight and passenger cars. And then in addition to that, scenery, structures, and other things. So just like any other product catalog that you would look to, maybe from Atlas or even one of the online hobby stores, you'll be able to browse the repository in the different categories and see what models are being uploaded and contributed, and then downloaded free of charge. And these models, hopefully, we're starting with about 24 different models, and the models all high quality, scaled for 1/48, but easily rescaled for any other scale that modelers might need. Um,
Seem to have a
Want to hear me
freeze. There we go.
is so. Can you hear me now?
Yep. But you
Okay.
you are jerky and going in and out. So
Sorry, it's because I have a third world internet connection in Washington D.C. One of the areas that I've been kind of challenging myself to figure out is how to model trees, because it seems like that's quite a challenge to get very authentic, realistic looking trees. And using some of the software that's out there right now for virtual reality, we've been able to model very beautiful, very realistic looking trees for virtual reality, and then taking them out of VR and making them into models that can import into 3D models that are suitable for printing. Now, this is a tree that I've built recently, and this is a broadleaf tree that could be like a maple or a oak tree, and you can see with the branch structure that it's not too bad, and it's a lot easier than spending your time twisting and bending wire and then putting different types of coating on it. Unfortunately, this tree takes the printer about 30 hours to build, because it's a very long type of model, and but it's really a very realistic looking tree that just needs to be painted and then sprinkled with leaves and then installed on the layout. So this is the kind of thing that we want to make available to everybody in the scale, and have it categorized so it's easy to find things, download them, print them, and paint them, and then put them on your layout. Let me pause here and see if there are any questions.
Greg, one of the things that I would hope that you would be able to cover is how we propose to organize, describe, and index the different files and how they will be arrayed in terms of what format we use and how they get accessed and so on.
Okay, so Dan Dowdy is probably going to be doing a lot of that work, because he is managing the O-Scale Central website. But what is going to be the best analogy I can make is it's going to be just like an e-commerce type website, where you would browse different products, and the ones that you want you can select, and then instead of like purchasing, you would just download, and these models would be in a file format that would be compatible with 3D printers, and then you would just have to set it up on your printer to print the particular model.
All right. Any questions, any comments, any suggestions that we might get to improve the library that we intend to build? If there are not, I guess I would say watch this space. We're trying to get in on the ground floor. One of the things that is really lovely to see is how many O-scale modelers are willing to make their drawings and their projects publicly available for free for use by people in the scale. It's been very gratifying to see, and there are some fantastic modelers out there, modeling in the sense that they are able to think through and work in CAD some very remarkable programs. So thanks for Greg for your taking the coordinator responsibility on this, and feel free to get in touch with Greg if you've got feedback or questions. Greg, what is your email that people can get to you at?
Oh, let me just put it in the chat, and then people can copy it and
That
email
would be
me
great.
directly.
Thank you. And speaking of the chat, I want to flag the fact that Rod Miller, who was apparently having technical difficulties, said that he confirmed the information that I provided regarding O-Scale West. And if you're looking for an excuse to go to California, or if you already live in California, that's going to be a great show. I think they're right sizing it, and it's going to be good. I also learned from Eric Peterson that in fact we've had a hiccup in terms of the coming shows, coming events for O-Scale on our oscalecentral.com website, but it will be back up there before long. And the information will be re-entered. All right, at this point, a couple of things. One, I guess, is a point of personal privilege, and that is I have had a very, very supportive relationship with Jim Kello at Nutrax Modeling. And Jim has a program not altogether different from this that works across scales and includes updates on what's happening, build along models, and so on. And Jim is stepping down from hosting Nutrax Modeling at the end of this year, but he's leaving it with a good team. Tom Farrell will step into the host coordinator role. Martin Breckbiel, who is on the call here and who is the former editor of O-Scale Trains, is doing the newsletter. And I just want to thank that whole crew, and in particular Jim Kello, for his work. We look forward to having having all scale parts of Nutrax Modeling continuing forward. Now, I will say one more thing, and that is I also am stepping down as president of O-Scale Central at the end of the year. I will be moving into the leadership slot at O-Scale Central and a lot more organizations that is most desirable. I will become the president emeritus. The new president will be Skylar Shippey, and Skylar has a lot of things going for him. He's from Michigan, where I'm from. He graduated from University of Michigan, which I did. He is a nickel plate modeler, which I am. And if you start seeing a pattern of, how I went out and recruited somebody that I think will fit right into the shoes, I did. Skylar is also president of the Detroit Model Railroad Club in Holly, and is the membership director for the Nickel Plate Road Historical and Technical Society. He is also a very active modeler, and he will have a modular layout that is already constructed and is going to get bigger, and he will be bringing that to the March meet in Chicago. So I'm looking forward to having Skylar in the leadership position. For better or worse, he has asked me to stay on and continue to handle the O-Scale Central online with the team that we have, and I'm delighted to do that. Our next program.
David, could
Yes,
I,
sir.
David, I appreciate so much your comments about me and Nutrax modeling because the relationship has been fantastic. For the people that are here, you may not know it, but the only association, the only model railroad association, and I consider O-Scale Central and O-Scale Kings an association that has actively supported the scholarship program that Nutrax Modeling has, is this organization that David Vaughn is president of. It is the only one. The NMRA has not supported us. Why? I'm not sure. I've heard that they want to have their own and they don't want to support anything else until they can get theirs going. I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what I've heard. S-Scale said that they weren't interested. So the only organization, as far as I'm concerned, that has actively supported our scholarship program is this organization, and I will never forget that. The other thing that I'd like to comment on, I really think that the way that you're going on trying to become a place where O-Scale modelers can go to find 3D capability, I think that is wonderful, because I do believe that technology is the future for our hobby in a lot of ways. So if you would like, we could put an article in our newsletter that's coming out the 1st of January, as long as somebody will send some information to Martin Breckbill about what you're planning to do and so forth, and ask for comments. I think that would be a great asset for the whole hobby of O-Scalers and potential O-Scalers. I'll be glad to do the same thing for my upcoming article in O-Scale Resource Magazine, as long as I can get some information, David, like you provide me, about what's coming up for O-Scale. So if you can include that, or if Skylar can include that in the comments from the O-Scale Central organization for the issue that's coming out in March, because March will be the next issue that I'll be writing for, then I'll be glad to include that, because I really think that you're onto something here. And I think a lot of O-Scalers and people maybe in other scales that would be really interested in being able to utilize 3D capability, this could be a draw, in my opinion, to bring them here, because I don't know of any other organization that's doing something like this. So I think, again, this organization would be on the cutting edge of that, and I really think it's a wonderful idea. So if you're interested in that, that would be great. Also, be glad to have you or whoever's in charge of it as a host on our Zoom show to explain it to everybody and to talk about it maybe in a little bit more detail. The tree example that you gave, I've never heard of anything like that before. That to me is something that would really be advantageous to a lot of people. And as I say, I've never heard of anything like that before. And I'm sure there's other new things that are being discussed and are capable for 3D printing and related technology that ought to be discussed. And if O-Scale Central wants to be on the cutting edge of it, I'd be glad to do anything I can to promote that, David, because I think you're really onto something.
Thank you, Jim. Really appreciate it. And we will be working together. We're sort of toward the end. I want to do one more thing, and that is to flag next month's program. Next month's program will be Sunday, January 19, and we will have to be doing some shuffling because I really do want to get back to Tom Farrell, and we've got a couple of other things up in the air, and we may need to do some jockeying. But the one commitment that we have that I'm really looking forward to is that we will get a tour of Tom Hoback's layout. Now, many of you may not know Tom Hoback, but he is a career railroader. He modeled in 12-inch to the foot, and at one point was president of the Indiana Railroad. And he has a Santa Fe layout, which is absolutely spectacular. And he's working with Eric Peterson to put together a tour of that layout, and it is going to be really, really good. We have several other layout tours in the works right now, but this one is committed for January 19. So don't miss it. Tell your friends. With the invitation that comes out for the January 19 program will be a list of all of the program dates for the year. Most of them will be in the third Sunday of the month, but we've got a couple of things we need to work around, so we will get the word out to you with the next invitation. That really concludes the program here. Eric Peterson will be very happy because he always beats on me to keep the program short. But what we have done is to keep the link open, the program open, because there are people who have questions or comments that they want to make that they may not want to put in the formal part of the meeting, but we're certainly pleased to have people have an opportunity to just, trade stories, ask questions, shoot the bull, and spend some time doing that. So I thank you all for attending and supporting the program. I hope that you will join O-Scale Central if you haven't, and renew if you have. But let's stay open. We are now in what they call in the meeting business a committee of the whole. So if anybody's got any questions that they would like to ask or comments they would like to make, please unmute yourself and do so.
Hello, this is Daniel Rabel. I'd like to make a comment. I think it's wonderful to put together a database, for the 3D files. I'm happy to offer anything and everything, that I've been creating over time. One of the projects I'm working on right now is generating super detail parts for a 20th century roundhouse. I'm using the Lake Erie and Western, located still in Frankfort, Indiana. Became nickel plate. So actually I can give you the scoop. No one's seen this yet, but I'm drowning in roundhouse parts right now. But here's the smoke jacks, transite smoke jacks, all the rivet detail and beams and iron strapping and that.
Oops. Dan, you froze up and left us. I can certify, by the way, that Dan Rabel, who lives in the Cleveland area and is also a nickel plate modeler, has been doing some fantastic work in 3D printing, and has, at least for some of his work, indicated that he will make it available for use by the hobby. One of the stunning things that he has done, and I unfortunately do not have a photograph of it that I can get up here in time, is a nickel plate road drumhead, which he's doing in 3D printing, and is going to include both he's got any scale you want, although as we know, O-Scale comes out the clearest and the best. But Dan is going to be one of the participants, we hope, in the library. If you're back, Dan, there you go. Okay. Whoops. You must be short-circuiting the camera when you put that much detail in one thing. Maybe the pixels can't handle it, Dan. But if you can get back on, do that with the nickel plate drumhead. There you go. Whoops.
Is that going in focus yet?
You
No,
gotta turn off
back it
your
up.
background blurriness.
Oh, do I have a blurry thing on right now? I don't need
Yeah.
that. How do I turn that off?
If
I'll
it's
look
in the
here.
background, Zoom backgrounds, just put none.
Okay. Let me see if I can do that. I'll hold this up and let me.
There you
Oh,
go. All right.
there we go. There's
Now-
a big one. This is more like 7.5-inch scale, but for fun. But here's the O scale one. You can see that. I'll get really close to the camera.
That
Yeah.
is just fantastic. Well, as a nickel plate modeler, of course, I think that's fantastic. But it certainly demonstrates some of the things that can be done in 3D printing. And I don't know where Dan finds the time to do this, but he's
3 in the morning. So there's your smoke jacks. I'm really happy with those. And I've got the inspection pits and all the interior beams. And I'm working on all the services, the utilities now as well, like steam utility, blowout lines, all that for roundhouse, which I think anyone building a roundhouse could find use in. You don't have to be building a nickel plate roundhouse to need any of the, bread and butter stuff. So yeah, happy to use any of that. I'll post in the chat where all my files are if anyone wants to start poking around and taking a look at some of the stuff that's becoming available.
Yeah,
That's
we're-
fantastic. I can't. One of the things that Dan did was to go down to Cleveland Union Terminal and measure, photograph, and then produce in 3D the old catenary supports and bridges down there, and they are absolutely gorgeous. It is. I won't say it's easy to produce, although it seems to be pretty easy for Dan. But this is just a treasure trove of work.
Well, thank you,
Got
Dan.
it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions or comments for Dan? Anybody got any questions or comments for other parts of the program, or anything just for the good and welfare of the scale?
a
But
comment
I've
for
got a
Dan,
picture to
um,
share.
Okay, share a picture. Screen share is on.
Should have it, right?
Okay, that's
This
up
is
on the
a-
screen.
This is a 3D printed model of a passenger station in 148.
beautiful.
And it's just, finishing this up.
Well,
And
I
this
hope
is-
that you'll contribute that to our repository.
It's not mine. I had this done as a kit with my checkbook. So we'll see, but it's a resin printed kit, and it's mine to paint and assemble and everything, but it's just been a thrill. And this building actually exists today in Salamanca, New York. It is now a passenger's museum. It was a derelict boarded up station when it was on my territory working for Chessie. But it's been restored by the community, so it's just quite a thrill to be able to reproduce it.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Fantastic.
A comment for Dan. Dan, if you're building catenary railroad, Bob Lavezzi, who usually attends the Strasbourg show, I think has a lot of catenary equipment that he wants to get rid of. And I think if you're interested in equipment, he would be approachable to unload what he's got.
What is his last name? Could you spell it or attempt to?
Lavezzi, Lavezzi.
That's
ZZI?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I have Bob's contact information.
Okay, there's a huge community here in the Cleveland, Ohio area for that. In fact, that's how I got in the Canton area. Was I was building some unique towers for some local folks for the Northern Ohio Traction and Light, which were just as unique as the Cleveland Union Terminal, but in a different way. And they all do live overhead in that. But I'll pass the contact along and see. Excellent, thank you for that.
Very good. Thank you.
Well, I would love if you could put me in touch with that group in Ohio. I'd love to be able to talk to them.
Sure, absolutely. There's nothing formal. There's no official club. It's just, but most of them are at the Cleveland O Scale show, every year.
Yeah.
Either shopping or shopping and having a vendor's table. But a lot of them have private layouts, or semi, private layouts of their own, building Kenton area.
If you could put me in touch with one member of it or something that I could talk to, that would be great. I really would appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Will do.
Thank you. David, let me mention one other thing. I don't know how many people are interested in O-scale narrow gauge, but we had 3 people, Tom Farrell was one of them, that represented Nutrax modeling at the National Narrow Gauge Convention in Pittsburgh this year. And we have got, and we've shown on one show, frankly, all of the models that were entered in the model contest for that show. And we've got 7 more videos. We've started showing them once a week. We've got 7 more of the layouts that were on the tours of the narrow gauge convention in Pittsburgh. And we're showing one a week at the end of our Nutrax modeling shows. So if you're interested in that, you can either, come and see them as we do it each week, or you can see the videos later on our YouTube channel, Nutrax Modeling. But it's really, so far, it's really been fascinating. And funny enough, the O-scale narrow gauge, as Tom, and you were there, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is right. O-scale narrow gauge took most of the first place awards in the contest. So I was really surprised, frankly, at that, and very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, that's
Right.
cool. And we have videos of O-scale layouts too, so there's something for everybody. Full scale, standard gauge.
Yep, that would be great. And if you have them and you'd like for us to show them on our show, we call it the caboose part of our show. And I'll be glad to introduce you and let you walk through the layouts, because one of our goals 2025 is to have more layouts available on our shows, because we think that there's a lot of interest, and frankly, people aren't getting around to see the layouts as much today as we used to in the past. For example, I don't get to go to Cleveland to the train show like I used to each year anymore. But it just, we're missing a lot of what we used to enjoy. Some of us are, at least.
Can you all see my photo with this model?
Up a little, David.
I'm sorry?
Raise it up.
Raise it up. Okay.
About another inch, David.
Say again?
A little higher.
There you
Right
go.
there. That's it. That's it.
Excellent. Okay. This is a 3D resin printed model of a Lima diesel switcher. Of course, nickel plate was big on Lima, and Lima actually had a good line of diesel electric locomotives, which for various reasons never really caught on, but it wasn't the quality. Dylan Lambert has produced a resin printed model of this. I think I've mentioned this before, and we had Dylan on the program, but it's an example of models that can be built that would never be able to be built if we had to go through a brass manufacturer, an importer. And he has sold these bodies through his little business. And the other end of this, because right now they are just a body and frame, but no power unit, is that All Nation under John Wubble, whom we've also had on the program, has a really good, solid mechanism for the standard switcher with the AAR Type B trucks. And John has worked with Dylan Lambert and with me to design a custom mechanism that will directly fit with the Lima Locomotive Works diesel electric switcher body. And I think you're going to see a lot more of this, of collaboration between the people who are doing 3D printing and the people who have the rest of the hardware that would be needed to bring models actually into use on your layout, whether it is trucks and couplers or decals or whatever. But I think you're going to see a lot of synergy around the whole 3D print community. And I'll indulge myself. I apologize for hogging the screen. But some of you may be aware that John Armstrong, who was at one point certainly probably the most influential O-scale modeler anywhere, did a proto-freelance articulated covered hopper called the Cementipede. And I am working with Jim King of Smoky Mountain Model Works, who is one of the more sophisticated users of resin casting as well as 3D printing to produce models of this car. And we're really having a lot of fun and a few challenges with it. But you can look for that in the next issue of O-Scale Resource. There will be an ad which will explain more about the car and how to order it.
Hey, David,
Yes, sir.
something that we're planning right now on new tracks in January related to O-Scale is this, there's a real interest in what we call ON18, which is O-Scale narrow gauge, 18 inches between the rails, which just coincidentally fits N gauge track, although most modelers aren't using straight up N gauge track. They're using HON 30, which matches up more prototypically. But listen to this. There's a group of our guys that regularly feature 3D printing of shells that go on Cato N scale drives. You can order these drives on eBay, these Cato drives, for $20. And anybody that knows Cato knows these are extremely high quality drives. Cato does not produce, inexpensive garbage. So think about having an ON18 narrow gauge locomotive for under $40. I mean, that's amazing. And it's a quality drive. They're analog at the moment, and we're going to be featuring, and I'm personally going to be featuring a whole series of videos on doing a ON18 narrow gauge scene on my rustic buff, an old Gothic railroad. It's going to feature these, they're called Stony Creek 3D printed shells with these Cato drives. And we're just in the planning process now, but just conceptually think about getting an O-scale locomotive of that quality for under $50. I mean, that's the future of the hobby. It's just amazing, Anyway, that's just a little related to 3D printing.
Is ON 18 based on any real trains?
Yeah,
Or is it like ON 30 where we have a gauge of convenience?
it's both. ON 18 is principally in prototypical applications is mining operations or plants, like steel plants or something, but no, there are prototypical examples. That doesn't really slow down modelers. You could do a pretty realistic scene. I mean, the scene behind me is about as realistic as you can get and exists only out of my imagination. That's ON 30. Yeah. So I don't think that's a criteria to be, to have it strictly prototypical. If you can do high level modeling in ON 30 and ON 18, and not have a prototype, it's obviously not a sin. The object, of course, is to enjoy the hobby. And
Sure, agreed.
and the reason ON 30, I don't want to get into it too deeply, but one of the reasons ON 30 took off is Bachmann in all their locomotives. And we see ON 18 taking off because of the ability to use these Cato drives. Anyway, just a little sidebar. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? We're now to the good and welfare part of the meeting. If they're not, then I want to thank everybody for your attention. I want to thank Tom Farrell for putting on a program overcoming lots of technical issues. I want to wish everybody happy holidays, and we look forward to seeing you in January. And in the meantime, I hope you get O-scale models in your stocking for the holidays, and that you have some time to go down into the basement and work on your layout during the downtime. So thank you very much. And unless there's anything else, I'm going to pull the plug on the meeting. Thanks a lot for everybody's participation.